call to order the Tuesday, June 25th Andover City Council meeting. We'll start with a very short roll call. On my left.
Caroline Hale. Caroline Hale, council member.
Troy Tabor, council member.
Ben Lawrence, Mayor.
Clark C.R. Nelson, council member.
Greg Schneider, council member.
Mike Keller, police chief.
Donna Davis, chief financial officer.
Chad Russell, fire chief.
Jennifer McCausland, assistant city administrator.
JT Klaus, city attorney.
Les Mangus, director of public works.
Susan Renner, city clerk.
Mark Detter, city administrator.
All right, Pastor John Langley is here from East Point Church in the back to lead us in the invocation. Thank you.
Let's pray. Father, you are ageless. You have no way of showing time in your realm, but we experience it here. And so, Father, as we go through this summer, we ask you for your continued watch over our city, our community. We ask you that you would be with every child as they enjoy the warm weather, as they get out and get about. Father, we pray for their safety. We pray for their judgment, and we ask you, Father, to protect them. We ask you for this even as the council meets, Father. We pray that every moment spent in making laws or bringing up subjects, that our children will be the center of our discussions, that their good is always on our heart, and that their need is always what we are looking for. May we bless them with a good community, with a good solid structure, and with the ability to lead. Father, would you help us to see good? Would you help us to see evil? And would you help us to follow what is good? We ask you for these things, and we praise you for being God. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Will you stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 5 this evening is the public forum. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am. If you come up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Melissa Cross, address 268 South Lakeside Drive, Andover. I am the social chair for Green Valley 5 and 6, and am requesting a road closure. I have submitted the documentation along with the map as displayed. The event's July 13th, and the road closure would be from 3:30 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Which pleasure.
I assume that's been covered with everybody that needs to be notified?
Yes.
Assuming that's the case, that I would move to approve the road closure from 3:30 to 9 p.m. on July 13th for the Green Valley 5 and 6 homeowners associations.
Correct.
Second.
Carrie. Who seconded that? Greg. All right, motion by CR, second by Greg to approve the road closure as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have fun.
Thanks. Have a great evening.
We're still in the public forum. Anyone else like to speak? If you could give your name and address for the record.
Steve Voisin, I live on 735 North Deerfield Circle. On agenda 7 for a citizen request, Deerfield, it says Deerfield Court Street, but actually it should be Deerfield Circle, which is just north of that. So Wednesday, July 3rd, I'd like to have the block to ourselves. We have everybody in the community chips in to have a good time to represent the 4th of July, but we're doing it on the 3rd.
Mr. Mayor, assuming that street is okay, change the street to Deerfield Circle. on July 3. Is there a specific time frame?
From 6:30 on,
Okay.
open to midnight, probably, 11:59.
All right. I would incorporate the dates, the times that you've just mentioned into my motion for approval.
I appreciate that.
Second.
All right, motion by CR, second by Caroline to approve the road closure at Deerfield Circle on July 3rd from 6:30 to midnight. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have fun.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, councilmen, women, all of you city employees. My name is Marci Laffen. I live at 301 South Sunflower Lane. I'm here tonight to express some concerns about some library policies that are in place. There's been a couple of council members that attended an appeal hearing I had, and one that had attended the ruling of an appeal I had before the library board, but I don't see them here tonight unless I'm not recognizing. You're a library board person though, right? Yeah, I'm talking about council member that was there.
Two of us are missing tonight.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were filled in about any of that process, but this, let me try to fill you in so that you're up to speed on why I'm here. Last June, I learned of some books that were on the bookshelves that were concerning to me to be in the children's section. I checked them out. I read them. A friend and I met with Mr. Taylor, the director of the library, and he moved one that was in, I don't know if you're familiar with the library, but there's a very early child reader area, picture book area. He moved that to the early reader area, which is like 7 to 12-year-olds, and so because it was a memoir. The content I was concerned about was beyond their age, reasoning, and cognitive ability. These books included cross-dressing psychotic episodes, suggesting hiding internet searches. My background's nursing, so I was quite disturbed by the characters in these books that are doctors, but giving very lacking information when they were encouraging the characters in the stories to take androgen blockers. I find that concerning because children take things quite literally and trust a doctor to give information that's correct. Suggesting throwing a bottle of urine onto a police officer, which I have issue with since I'm helping to pay for our police force, and this is encouraging hostility toward our police officers. And discussing in detail cutting off a penis with a nail clipper. These are in these early childhood reader books. I filed a request to have them moved. It was called a reconsideration, and that is the main reason why I'm here tonight, is because in this reconsideration process, I took great time and effort to write papers on this subject for each of these books. There were 3 books. I included 13 resources. This wasn't something I spent a good amount of time on it, and I submitted them, but then I was excluded from my own reconsideration hearing. I don't find this very American. I don't find this fitting anything in our legal process. They said I could have someone represent me, which I had the friend who had gone with me to the original meeting represent me at that. But then when I lost the reconsideration and filed the appeal, I'm then at a loss because I was not allowed to be in the reconsideration process. So therefore, I'm having to go by hearsay in my own appeal. And that is why I'm here to you tonight, since you oversee the library board. They're nominated, they're not elected, you're our elected officials. I am at an impasse. At my appeal, I requested that the board reconsider that whole thing, because I said this isn't fair. This isn't fair that a person would file these papers and not be allowed to be in their own hearing, and then be in an appeal where you can't even refer back to your reconsideration hearing. This is not American. I just received a response from Linda Schiller, the head of the library board, April 24th, and she said that it would continue, that it would be up to the discretion of the director of the library whether a person would be able to be in that reconsideration committee hearing. Which again, I just said, I don't think this is American. I don't think this fits any of the due process of our country. And the very person who has filed a reconsideration and is filing an appeal to be excluded from anywhere in that process is unacceptable. It's just completely unacceptable. So I'm asking the council to please check into this, because I'm at an impasse. I have not heard back from Linda Schiller. It's been 2 months. When I said, please reconsider this, I still don't think this is correct. And since I'm before you, I'm going to also bring up my concern that has also fallen on deaf ears. Well, it's not fallen on deaf ears. They've taken some stuff, but it's, I don't know if you're aware, the Andover Library will check out R-rated materials to children. In case you don't know, there's no law that says R-rated movies can't be checked out. The movie theaters take this upon themselves for a matter of decency, and that's why they put those R ratings and the different ratings in place, and they then do not have young adults under 18 attend R-rated movies. But it's concerning to me, as a taxpayer, that our library has this policy in place. And so during my appeal, I also, because I learned this information during this year-long, or the 6-month process, and now it's been a year, and I said in my appeal also, please change this policy, because I don't think that's right, that we would be having kids who could be checking out R-rated movies at the public library. Linda Schiller, in her email, and I can share all these documents with you if you wish, said that they would, and the library board member can agree, and I'm sure she's aware, that a parent could flag the library card so the child could not check it out. And I asked, how will first of all, the parent even know that this is an option, that there is even this situation that your child could be checking out things? And second of all, how would they even be alerted that they could flag their child's card? Again, I got no response. It's been 2 months, so here I am putting this before you as well, because you are my elected officials. We are a representative form of government, and I feel this is a matter of concern for, I think it's kind of ironic, the prayer that was prayed at the beginning, praying about our children and their safety and the good of our community. That is exactly my concern here. I personally have issue with the fact there's a policy at the library that says they will not have dominant prurient material, but you can type in erotic and pull up 45 titles, including 50 Shades of Grey, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of what that's about. And a child could check that out, because the library has a policy, and it comes straight down from the ALA, that they do not want to have limitations on free access. And they'll say that's the parent's responsibility, but I'm telling you, the community is not aware, as parents, that their child could be checking out that stuff. I have been taking measures to be alerting the churches in the community, because I know like-minded people want to know this. And so I've been taking the effort to do that, to communicate to them. Because it's I would be upset. And I know there's been more and more books added, and there are more and more books I've discovered since I did this process this past year, that parents would be alarmed and concerned if their little biddies check them out, brought them home, and now they've kind of talked to Johnny about a subject that's way beyond their years, but now it's been breached. So let me review. I want the council, I'm asking you to please check on this situation with the reconsideration process that's excluding Andover taxpaying citizens from the process. Secondly, the R-rated movie situation, that citizens, either the library alerts people that this is even a policy, or change their policy, that kids just can't. And again, I guess as a taxpayer, I have concern about my money being spent on things that appear to clash with their own policy. But I know dominant prurient is probably up for discretion or interpretation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I've got a couple questions, ma'am. I want to make sure that I understand where we are. I categorize your first issue as a procedural issue.
Correct. Procedural,
And,
correct.
That's something that, as citizens, there's nothing worse than either a lack of due process,
Right.
or some method by which you could exhaust your administrative remedies correctly. Before we hear from the library board, I just want to make sure I understand where you are.
Yes,
Then
it's a
the-
procedural concern.
Okay, and then your second, if not second and third, have to do with the merits of children checking out what you perceive to be R-rated materials. without the
Well,
knowledge of the parent.
They are, right?
But that's your allegation, right?
Yes.
And at some point in time, the library board has approved that, or they have not made a decision on that? Or where do we stand?
So the R-rated element is now that parents could flag the card to keep a child from checking it out, because otherwise it's all about free access.
Okay, but
So a child could check it out unless the
Excuse me
parent
just a second,
flags.
But your position there is that that's possibly not a bad way to handle it.
They just
but
don't
it's
know.
has not been communicated.
Yeah, they could have, but they haven't responded to me. They've not, I said, well, how are the parents going to be informed that this is even an option, or that they would even be alerted that, yeah, this is a possibility your kid could check out this kind of material.
So I think I understand the issues,
Okay.
and hopefully we can help you out in some fashion, but I'd like to hear a response from the library board. And
Sure.
then,
Yeah, she's just here by chance
I
tonight.
may
She had no idea I was talking.
our city attorney to answer a question or two or get us in the right direction.
Yeah, because like, there's one book, little girls are into princesses, and they could go do a catalog search, and one comes up, it's something about witches, princes, and lesbians, pick your own ending, which is a very common thing for children to like, pick your own ending books, but it's pick your own erotic ending. These kind of things are, I know, again, the library would tell you it's the parent's responsibility to oversee this, but I guess I have a concern about the protection of our kids.
Very good.
Thank you for your time.
Let's, Martha, before you come up here, I would like to explain the dichotomy between the city council, city, and the library. The library derives a lot of its power from state statute. Yes, they get their funding from us. Yes, the board of library directors is appointed by myself with consent of the council. Other than that, we don't engage in the overseeing of the library, and they're somewhat autonomous in that nature. So it's difficult, a little scrambled eggs for us to try and get in there and manipulate individual policies. If we don't like the outcome or the situation that's going on there, our remedy is to replace the board. That's basically our only remedy if something can't be ferreted out through negotiations. So I want to make that clear to everybody here, what we're talking about.
I would like to have one comment possibly from our city attorney. What is this lady's remedies if she has exhausted the library board procedure situation? What is it that she can do next, if anything? I think what she's suggesting, she could appeal to the city council. I think the mayor is stating that that's not the case. I don't know the answer to that, and you may not at this point in time, but some guidance preliminarily might be in order.
I don't know, Councilmember Nelson. I didn't know this issue was going to be discussed, and I don't know the answer. I will tell you that the mayor's explanation of the statutory authorities of a library board and the manner in which it functions are typically autonomous. He is further correct that the limitations, at least as the library board and as the Kansas Library Association see them, are the appointment of the officers and the ability to control the purse strings. And when I talk about the ability to control the purse strings, I don't mean that you can dictate how the money is spent. You simply can create ordinances and limitations on the mill levy because you're the elected officials. As to the appropriate appeal process from a library board determination, I just simply don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to research it and get back to you.
Thank you. I think I understand that. Okay.
Well, Martha, if you'd like to speak, you certainly can.
Well, like you, I did not realize this was going to be discussed tonight, so I don't have everything in my head that I would want to share with you. But I do want to say we really appreciated you coming to the board all those months ago, and we have spent hours and hours and hours having public hearings, having board discussions, and making changes, positive changes, as a result of the points that you brought up, Marci. I'm sorry you didn't hear back from Linda in response. I know she's been out of town a lot. She wasn't able to be at our last board meeting, so perhaps that's something to do with it, because normally she's responsive. But in specific reference to your first question about our process, we agreed with you, and we agreed with you.
Oh, no. No, because at my appeal, they said, oh, there was a misunderstanding.
I'm saying after that time.
Listen, I can't have you at the
Okay.
podium, her in the audience. Nobody
Yeah.
watching or recording this can hear her.
Okay.
So direct your comments up here.
Thank you,
We
sorry.
can-
After the appeals process that was gone through with the book, the board made substantive changes to our policies that took place over the course of a couple of board meetings as a result of the issues that she brought up, and we have made changes. And I'm sure our director would be pleased to brief you in depth about what we went through. I mean, we've got a sheaf of correspondence and papers about it, but she brought up great points. We made changes, and what I'm hearing tonight is that she's not satisfied with what we've done. But
Is it, can she reapproach the library board for whatever the differences are? I don't know what the procedure is for her to do that.
there's a very specific procedure that's been gone through already that took months. We had public hearing, all kinds of things happened, so I don't know that we would, honestly don't know if we would restart that process. We did make changes, substantive changes as a result of her issues.
Okay.
So,
Who's the library board liaison? Is that Mr. Warrington?
It's Councilmember Warrington right now. We'd have to look that up.
I think it would be prudent for us to have a discussion. If Mr. Warrington was president, I'd like to know the sequence of events that occurred.
yes. Or was Mr. Schneider, was it you? Were you there earlier in the year?
Earlier.
In
yes.
January?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those changed in January, right? The appointments changed in January. So,
May I speak again?
sure.
I would be happy to provide the email I received, and this is the last communication I ever received from anybody. And it does not, here's what it said. This is from Linda. And we did have I feel like the process was very amiable, it was peaceful, it was respectful. Tom and I were very cordial, Linda was very cordial. It was really, it could not have gone better. This is not out of spite. I've loved our library. My kids have checked out thousands of books through the years. We've spent hours and hours there. This is not about some angst with the library. This is being concerned about this process not being fair to citizens. And this is a response I got that said, I wanted to follow up on your note regarding the reconsideration process. The board approved a revision to our process clarifying that, at the director's discretion, the complainant may be invited to the committee hearing regarding the request for reconsideration. That's what I just said to you earlier. The board also reviewed our approach to checking out movies a parent can ask to flag their under 17 child's library card so the child cannot check out R-rated movies. Thank you for your support. I responded to her and said, that I'm not happy with either of these, and I've not heard any more. So if there's been lots of changes made beyond this, I have no idea. So like I said, I'd be happy to provide this to you, but that's what I know. That's why I'm here.
My comments are that I sincerely appreciate you coming this evening. It appears that there may be some cross-communication, and maybe with Mr. Warrington at all, we can kind of get that ironed out. You may not like the end result, but at least you ought to have a fair hearing and have that considered by the board. And if you have, fine, but you need to know about it and it sounds like you're going in the right direction. I must say, I haven't been all that involved in that issue, but it's very important, and the library board has done a wonderful job. These are all extremely difficult issues, and somebody's not going to be happy at the very end. I can't tell you what the very end is, and your position to me is reasonably fair. I haven't heard the end of this. I've read, you've told us what that email is. There may be a little bit more communication among all of you that might solve at least the issue of the procedure problem, and then you'll get it, and the substance, that's the tough one. And then I think whatever the rights are of each citizen, we want to respect that. But I know how difficult a subject matter this is for you to come tonight. I thank you very much for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you for your time.
So let's set this topic up. I was made aware of this, not all of this, briefly a few months ago. It sounded like it had resolved itself, but perhaps it hasn't. So let's make this a subject of the next workshop. If we have any materials to review and read, such as your emails, please forward those to the city clerk. I mean, we get library board meeting minutes, right?
Sometimes.
Well, let's request all of them.
Well, yes.
I'd like to peruse those myself, and see if we want to do anything. I mean, see what, and we'll get an answer from our city attorney what, if any, remedies there are, other than the aforementioned replacing the library board. We don't like what they're doing, so. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, apologize for doing this. I owe an apology to a young man in the front row. This fine-looking young man here is Andrew from Stellar Fireworks. He did everything he was supposed to do by getting an application to your fire department to shoot a fireworks show for Teradyne next week, and somehow our process broke down. It was approved. We cashed his check. Everything is good to go. We just didn't let him know, and unfortunately, we didn't let Susan know so it could be in front of you this evening.
Yeah, special pyrotechnic shows need to have approval of the governing body.
Yes, sir.
So when's the event? From when to when?
Andrew has all the details, and he said he's very willing to help us out with those.
Would you jump up to the podium, please?
Hello, I'm Andrew with Stellar Fireworks.
So the event's on the 4th?
Yes.
When
shooting 9:30 to 10 is the window.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the application of Stellar Fireworks for the project at Teradyne Country Club, July 4 from 9:30 to 10 p.m.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Greg to approve the fireworks show at Teradyne this July 4th. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Should be good to go.
Cool.
I hope there was some wiggle room in that window depending on weather.
Good point.
It's no later than 10 maybe. How's that? All right, we are still in the public forum. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public forum and move on to acceptance of the agenda. It's my understanding we need to add an executive session to the end of the agenda. We'll do that item right after item 14, and that is for what purpose? You have a statute for me? You'll get me one prior to that event, I guess?
Is that the only change?
I believe so.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to accept the agenda as presented with the addition of an executive session following item number 14 for attorney-client privilege pursuant to whatever the proper statute is that we'll get before we address the issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Caroline to accept the agenda with the addition of an executive session at the end. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I guess we already did 7, right?
Yes.
There's a citizen's request, so we'll skip on to item number 8, which is the consent agenda. So items 8.1 through 8.13.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Caroline, second by Troy to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, 159th Street KTA Bridge Project.
The agreement before you tonight is that typical city-state agreement that establishes a relationship between the city and the Kansas Department of Transportation for the administration of a road project and the distribution of the federal funds involved. This project's a little bit different in that it not only has an earmark from something like 10 years ago of $980,000, but there is also a substantial city-at-large portion, because you remember we had a bridge project that we then tagged on a road project. So if you look at that funding split, it appears to be out of balance for the typical 80-20 project. That's because there is a good portion of the project that is 100% city-at-large.
Mr. Mayor. Troy. I'd like to make a motion to approve the final project agreement with Kansas Department of Transportation for the city-state federal participation in the 159th Street KTA Bridge Improvement Project as presented.
Second?
Motion by Troy, second by CR to approve the KDOT agreement as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, Yorktown Parkway Project. It's a big change order. Matter of fact, this sets a record for a change order.
That's the largest in my career.
Yeah.
You remember that you authorized staff to negotiate a change order with Cornejo, who is under contract for Phase 1 of the Yorktown project. The majority of these unit costs in this change order are from the original project that was bid last year. There were a few items that weren't existing unit costs, but all in all, there's a substantial savings in doing this. You may remember that when we bid the 159th Street sewer project, we only had 2 bidders. Right now, the construction market is extremely flush. We only had 2 bidders on that project. A recent concrete paving project in Wichita just drew 1 bidder, and the winning bid was about 50% over the engineer's estimate. So we're very fortunate to have this contract in place and be able to extend those unit costs at last year's prices, not this year's price.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve change order number 5 to the Yorktown Parkway Project contract in the amount of $2,964,898.30 to add to construction of the Phase 2 of the project from Douglas Avenue to Central Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to approve change order number 5 as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Just like that, $3 million.
Okay.
We're going to fight over a couple thousand here in a minute. Item 11, 159th Street, US 54 to Central Project.
This contract with Trans Systems is to begin the preliminary engineering. You'll remember that the selection committee selected Trans Systems for this project a few months ago. We've taken some time to put together a contract. It's well within the project's budget for preliminary engineering. We've had a great relationship with Trans Systems, and we would recommend approval of this engineering contract.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the contract with Trans Systems for preliminary engineering of the 159th Street US 54/400 to Central Avenue Improvements Project 008N-0692-01.
Second?
Motion by Greg, second by Sierra to approve the 159th Street project with, project preliminary engineering contract with Trans Systems. Further discussion.
I would have a question. Why wasn't the price put in here as part of the motion and a not to exceed? Is that, you're giving me a weird look. Is that not normal? I feel like they were always put the price in.
The engineering contracts, it's difficult to nail it down to the penny because there are reimbursables in addition to the contract amounts. There was a amount in the contract for their fee and their fixed fee, but in addition to that, there will be expenses for mileage and reproduction and geotechnical boring and those sort of things.
Okay, well, just to put the numbers out so the public could understand how much the engineering price is, it's $450,219.86 plus the reimbursable expenses you just said.
Correct.
So it's a lot. It's not just a small amount. And it's probably smart to put that in motions from now on, even if it's going to be a guesstimate somewhat on the reimbursements, I think.
I think Troy's position's very valid. Maybe you want to amend the motion to include the numbers.
What was that amount again?
Well,
Sorry. It's $450,219.86 plus reimbursable expenses. Yeah, that's all it says.
Will so moved work for that?
You can amend your second?
and I will amend my second to be consistent with Troy's comments.
Okay, we have an amended motion by Greg to approve the contract with Trans Systems for preliminary engineering for the 159th Street from US 400 to Central Avenue for $450,219.86 plus reimbursables. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to step down on item number 12, Mr. President.
As far as I'm concerned, you can stay right there.
Due to conflict of interest.
Item number 12 has to do with the sanitary sewer plans for Teradyne 3rd Edition. Les, you've got any comments on this one?
The platting of the two lots in the Teradyne 3rd Edition required the extension of sanitary sewer to serve the site. What we have here tonight is the plan for that sanitary sewer extension. We're asking for approval of the plans and to authorize the opening of bids on July 2nd at 10 a.m. for consideration the next week.
I'm going to ask our city attorney, because my house is involved in that. It's the same similar issue on whether I could vote on the issues, and I presume that I can proceed with this. I just confirm with the city attorney.
It's just that the project begins in his backyard, but he's not assessed.
My understanding is that you're not included in the benefit district, nor are you taxed here, and that there's just a portion of the project that starts in the easement in your backyard, and that does not pose a legal conflict of interest.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have hopefully plans and bid and so forth. I would entertain a motion on this issue.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion to approve the plans as presented
Okay, there's a motion by Troy.
and authorize the opening of, do I need to put that in there?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, I like reading. So approve the plans and authorize the opening of bids on July 2nd, 2019 at 10 a.m. in consideration by the City Council on July 9th.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Troy, a second by Caroline to approve the motion as presented. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to item number 13, which is the Lafayette Herman project. Mr. Anderson.
Steve Anderson, city engineer. On the quick update on Lafayette Herman, we're close to done with the water line and storm sewer construction. Hope to start paving in the next few weeks. You may not remember, but I promised you would get a lot of complaints and change orders out of this project, and so far the complaints have been pretty minimal considering the weather, and we're here with the first change order tonight. We encountered an old clay sewer pipe across the street, fairly shallow. Our sewer department TV'd it and it was crushed in one place. Those pipes tend to have leaky joints, and after consulting with Public Works and particularly the sewer department, we determined it should be replaced for the entire length. So this replaces an asset that's 40, 50, 60 years old, plus greatly reduces the risk of having to tear up the street to fix it someday in the future. The motion is before you and the recommendation.
I would have a question on that. You said it's across the street from, so it's not actually on the street itself?
Okay, it's crossing the street perpendicularly.
Oh, it's crossing the street. Okay.
And it serves the present office of the school district.
And you said that the pipe was crushed already.
There was
Not
a
something
portion
that
of it that was damaged from some previous operation, and I don't know that I would guess what the useful life of a pipe is, but when we're 50 years old, we can go in and replace that with plastic pipe. It's generally considered a good idea.
When we do that now with existing infrastructure, for example, this clay pipe, do we charge the residents along that street, or is that something that's covered
No,
in our
actually, it's a good
1%?
question. The funds will come out of the sewer fund to pay for that.
Okay, so it won't be assessed to
No,
the
sir.
project or the residents?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Looking for a motion.
I would make that motion. I'd make a motion to approve the change order to Lafayette Herman Neighborhood Improvements Contract with Pearson Construction in the not-to-exceed amount of $15,576 and authorize the mayor to sign the change order.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Caroline, to approve the change order as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Item 14. We have some budget presentations this evening.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're in our final budget presentations, besides what I would say is going to be the budget presentation for the setting of the public hearing, which will be July 9th. But we have 5 budgets I believe we want to present to you tonight, starting with the municipal court budget. We have not done this before, but we've had a recent transition of the court, of course, to City Hall, so we thought it'd be good to talk with the City Council a little bit about what the new operations, so to speak, are looking like, and Michelle Matson's here to do that for us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, esteemed council, staff members. My name is Michelle Matson. I am the Andover Municipal Court Clerk. I'd like to go over our court budget for you. As you can see in the PowerPoint presentation, our expenditures have been pretty regulated. We're not too crazy off the board with what we spend.
Pull that mic towards you a little bit.
Sorry, normally I'm much louder.
You don't have to whisper.
Okay. What the court brings in with fines, I've kind of broke down over the year our revenue versus the tickets that have been written, dating back from 2014 to 2018. We have a pretty constant flow of what comes in and what goes out. Our FTEs for court, I believe we're a very small department. There's 1.5 FTEs. We've been that way dating back before 2014, but this is just a 5-year estimate. One of our expenditures in the contractual area is for prisoner care. We're pretty consistent with prisoner care, and that consists of the things from housing all the way down to medications that prisoners may need. We try to keep things very level and very even. There's been no major expenditures or any major incidents that have caused that to go up. For the prisoner care right now, our fee is $35 a day with Butler County Jail. They're who houses our
Charge us
prisoners.
$35 a day, that's it?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
That,
No wonder the jail's broke.
and there's no talk of that price going up, so that's what it's going to be for the.
Suspect.
In September, we did suffer a major change and shift in the way things went. We lost our former clerk of 10 years. She retired, and at that point, I stepped into the full-time position, and a new part-time clerk was hired, so that resulted in a reduction of the personnel costs. And in October, we made an even larger change by moving the new municipal court from the PD building here to our new home in City Hall here in Central Park. There's been some changes in the lines based on office supplies. Since we're no longer our own small entity with basic things, we now get to use a community kind of environment for the office supplies, so there's not a separate line for that, as well as some of the building supply lines. Are there any questions? It's a really small presentation. I'm sorry.
How do you like it over here?
It was really, really scary in the beginning, but I like it. It feels like home now, and everybody has been really great over here.
You're welcome.
You've done a very nice job in spite of your husband.
Wait a minute, I resemble that remark.
Hey, I do have a question now. Are we utilizing court clerks different times of the day to do other functions in administrative? Like,
Continue to work on some cross-training. There's more to be done. I will say that her job, particularly running the municipal court, takes up a lot of her time.
yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's another
do
phase at
have-
the
we have a-
window if the other three are occupied.
We have a second person in there that I'll get to later that we're proposing to make full-time. The person right now is splitting between a 20-hour-a-week job with the park department and a 20-hour week as a municipal court person, and we'd like them to do more functions on a full-time basis. It's we don't.
It's tough because when
Right.
when people walk in, it'll care which window. They'll talk to anybody, and we just want to be able to help them.
And so that's why we're proposing to expand the role of that particular person who's a part-time municipal
Do cross-training.
Right. And we could utilize them for more things. We're going to pay them out of other parts of the budget besides municipal court. But
Got it.
so we think
All
we'll
right.
have a little bit more efficiency there.
Okay. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to building inspections.
Steve Anderson again as building official. Second hat. Okay, let me run through these. So I'm going to start with a kind of a summary of the projected budget for 2020 compared to last year's 2019. The 2019 is kind of in the tan color, the 2020 is in the blue. We're a small department, 3 FTEs. Most of our budget is payroll or salary. The other components, contractual commodities, capital, and then the transfers to reserve are the main components of the budget. This is our big item, payroll. This particular drop doesn't mean we're doing a good job. It means we were between employees. So we had a few months without payroll, and that's the drop from 2017 to 2018. So we'll be back up next year. The next few are the components you saw on the first slide. What I'd like to point out as we go through these quickly, the 5-year average of all of the years shown. The individual years vary within plus or minus 10%, and in my opinion, just reflect business fluctuation in the market. Contractual, commodities, transfer. This fund was set up I think 10 years ago, to set money aside for demolition of buildings, dangerous and unsafe structures. So that's a consistent expense over the years.
What's the balance in that account, do you know?
Approximately 60,000.
It's what I recall, 50. And again, our total of all those components reflects the drop in payroll from 2017 to 2018. So that's the 5-year history. Capital, we bought a vehicle this year, 2019. We plan to buy one 2020, and probably one more out in the future some years. These are indicators, permits, inspections. That's for the building. This is for code enforcement. I think we had a change in personnel and maybe a conversion to software in the low year there. But except for that, we're pretty much plus or minus 10% year in, year out. That's the summary.
I have a question. What are we doing with the inspection of the schools now, those large commercial projects? My understanding, we were going to contract some of that out, or are we doing that all in-house?
We have a general contract with MABCD. They have done the major new buildings, for example, Andover High School, Andover Central High. We have, based on conversations with the fire marshal and our inspection staff, taken on some of the smaller projects, the site work, some of the building additions. We did the 4 elementary schools, and there will be some revenues that will probably increase this particular year due to those projects. So yeah, we're involved in the smaller stuff.
So which part of your budget reflects the amount that you pay for this contract for services?
That is not in the budget.
It's not.
I'm not sure I can tell you why.
Because those pay directly to building.
They pay directly to, that's right, MABCD receives the funds directly from them, and they don't pass through us.
Really? Okay.
So they're subject to Wichita's rates.
Right. It's great that we can do this on some of those larger projects where we don't have the personnel to accomplish that. I just never saw it on the budget lines, and I was wondering why.
Good question, thank you.
Okay. Does council have any questions?
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, thank you. Move on to IT.
My favorite.
Your favorite. Go for it.
Good evening. Thought we'd take a quick review of the IT budget. This includes a 5-year cycle, which kind of frames the strategic planning I've been doing. So I've got some stuff in here to talk about where we've been also. Basically, this is the bottom line up front. We're up about 1.5% next year over what we've got this year. The focus, we have gone through most of the older technology and refreshing it, so we're starting to look at keeping the cycle going so we don't get behind and have issues with that in the future. And we're starting to also make sure we've got the vendors engaged and services engaged so that there's continuity as we go forward if anything changes along the way. We had the questions to ask. We talked about the comparison of the budgets over the 5 years. I've got a couple more charts to talk about that. The department, we started at 1.5 heads, went to 2 for a couple years. Now we're back to 1.5 again. We've still got the work out there, but we've expanded the use of the vendors and other services to offset that reduction in head count. Maintaining the budget goals, we set the targets for the budget out there, and then we put the projects in. There are always projects we could be doing, but we try and spread those out to keep the costs more even and constant on the whole thing. Again, right now we're at 1.5 heads. Just some information, we're roughly at 153 computers. We got 28 printers that we did in that refresh, and we've got about a dozen servers. Little bit of a color chart to kind of contrast where we're at. 2014 was the last year communications was bundled in with IT, so that shows up as some of the higher numbers. We then had a drop off in 2015. We still had some of the software and other costs in there that we finally got completely unbundled in 16. So then from 16 on out shows the growth of the IT budget is purely an IT arena. The 19 and 20 in there are the budget estimates. The 16, 17, 18 are the actuals, but they just kind of move forward over time on that. This is kind
Greg,
of...
would you mind going back real quick? Sorry. So the big change, 17,360 to 430, and then 570. Then, so I mean, capital outlay is the big numbers there. Is that one of the areas that you're trying to normalize, or is that just it'll be what it's going to be?
That reflected some of the larger projects we had. The earlier couple years, the projects were significant projects, but they didn't require the kind of capital. The security systems and some of that stuff was more costly than like the PC replacements we'd done in earlier years. And I've got a little more information on that as we go, but that's kind of what we're doing, is trying to get it so that they're more flatline and predictable as we go forward. We may have bigger projects in certain years, but we're, like I said, trying to get handle on that, so we're planning that in as we go forward.
Thank you.
This is just a quick look at each of the categories. The top, the blue line is the budget for each of those years, where the orange line right below that is the actuals, except for the last couple years. And so we've been tracking at or below the budget all the way. Now we get back into, if you remember way back when I started, I created my bubble stoplight chart to talk about all of the areas and where we were going to put the efforts and how we've done that. We've now had the opportunity to pretty much cycle through all of the areas and put some emphasis and focus on those. And these are the kind of projects we had. Like I said, we started with the PC refresh, we've added the network, we've done a lot with software consolidation, Wi-Fi standardization, and these are the projects we've done in all those years. And that's where we talk about the camera upgrades and audio upgrades, and some of those were more significant in capital than like the earlier PC refresh. We got the network as a service rather than a capital outlay, so it didn't cost as much up front to do it, and we just got a month by month. And matter of fact, that one comes due next year, so late in the year we'll be doing an evaluation of where we want to go with all of that again. This is kind of what we've done over time project-wise in the technology arena. And from where I'm at right now, like I said, we have cycled through all of the areas. We're putting some emphasis on keeping things current. We're looking ahead to see what's upcoming so that we don't get behind on that. We're reaching the end of some of those early PCs, and we're starting to cycle through some of those. That'll be part of what we do next year. And that's kind of where all of this is headed. Any questions?
Good job.
I guess more of a comment. And I have spoken to you previously about the fact that I recall seeing a program on 60 Minutes in which a small town, their computers were hacked. I think they ended up being from Ukraine or somewhere. And you fight it for a while, then you got to pay them blackmail for it. And I was just hopeful that we're aware of those issues, and I don't know how you protect them fully, probably can't, but I know that you're on top of that issue, and I have a high level of comfort that we can solve those problems.
Well, I hope to stay ahead of all of that, but I think Mark put out a note this last couple days that we had seen something down in Florida, and if they are determined, they are probably going to get in, but we are doing everything we can. We've upgraded our security software a couple times to make sure we're on the best we can there. We have instituted a training practice with a test every 2 weeks, and every employee gets a phishing email that says, buy this, you want a free pizza, who knows what they say, but this week we actually have the free pizza. This week we actually got a perfect score on the test. Usually we have one or two that get a little extra training, but
that's included me.
Yeah, Mark gets a lot of extra training, but he also gets a lot of extra traffic that most of us don't have to deal with. But yeah, so we're trying to do everything we can to educate the employees not to let anybody in, and then to fortify the walls to keep everybody out that we can. So
appreciate what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned that, if we as council members get all these crazy emails too, which I just really delete, but are we also someone that the system could be broached by us as well?
You would definitely be targets of that kind of thing in the positions you're in. You are outside of our firewall as far as our risk goes. I'd be happy to add you to our phishing tests, but at this point, you're outside of the infrastructure with the email traffic you've got.
So we are.
The city is
not
protected
at the same
even.
level of vulnerability as our administrators would be.
Exactly.
Okay. But I am extremely careful with those things. I call you know how often I've called you to
Yes.
say, here's another crazy one. This sounds legitimate. What is it? Okay.
Yes.
One other thing I would mention for you all to know is that we did take out an additional insurance policy for cyber attacks, so that in the worst case scenario, we do have a little bit of extra financial protection if we should find ourselves in a ransom paying situation.
Very smart.
But along with that sounds great, but is it possible that isn't everything we do now, all your records are computerized, and is it really possible that somebody could just blow you up totally, that you all would lose all records?
Lock you out of your system.
Yeah, I mean.
We've got a disaster recovery process and system in place where we've got an immediate copy of everything that gets changed on a separate device downstairs, so that we could recover to that very quickly, and then that gets a copy on the East Coast and the West Coast, so that if this whole center were obliterated in some fashion, either maliciously or act of nature, we've got 2 other copies to fall back on.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Let's move on to amphitheater and festivals budget.
All right, we got some fun stuff now. No scary cyber things, at least for now. I did bring this to the amphitheater committee on the 14th and reviewed it with them, and they approved it. So just want to share it here too. All right, so the festival's budget includes the amphitheater and then Greater Andover Days and Hometown Christmas. There's a 6% increase for the next year, which is coming entirely from the amphitheater. Greater Andover Days and Hometown Christmas do really well, and we don't need to increase those at all for the next year. We may in future years, but we're doing all right for now. So the increase there is completely from the amphitheater. And our priorities for next year are increasing our ticket sales, as they are this year as well.
That is always a priority as we continue to grow, since this is just the second year. We don't have a lot of data from the amphitheater, but we have some from previous concerts. And you guys should have a spreadsheet in there that details all of the concerts from the past. But so for the amphitheater budget, it's a 6% increase in expenses, which comes mainly from the concert line of the amphitheater. Last year we had a lot of capital expenses that were one-time thing that we're not anticipating for a couple of years at least. So we don't have any major projects right now, but in a couple years we may. And our priority right now is just getting more people out here, selling those tickets, and keeping our expenses relatively low. Again, 2020 priorities: increasing our ticket sales and our sponsorships, and reducing the reliance we have on the CVB right now. We have that built in over the next couple years to reduce that spending so that they can focus on other tourism activities. And then in 2018, it just includes some transfers to and from other departments that we had to make it all work for last year. And the concerts on this slide also include the NFA that we had. So for the concerts for next year, the biggest increase that we have a 7% increase in the expenses. That comes mainly from an increase in artist funding. The goal there is to still do just 3 concerts, but increase the, I won't say value, but the level of artists that we can bring in, which will in turn bring in more revenues, more people coming. We could charge potentially a little bit higher for ticket sales. We don't want to charge too much more because we still want it to be family friendly. But that increase in artist revenue is offset by an increase in ticket sales, which is the big increase in the revenues for next year. But the other areas are also increasing a little bit, inflation and hopefully getting more people out here. And then another priority we have is maintaining our fixed expenses. As you'll see from year to year, our equipment remains the same. Marketing goes up a little bit as you bring in a bigger name, you do a little bit more marketing, things like that. But other expenses, we're working on keeping the same or cutting, and reducing our supply expenses from year to year, so that we can continue to reuse things. We don't need to buy the same things year after year, and cut those spendings. Our main issue is getting the revenues to offset the expenses, but we do a really good job of staying within our budget for the expenses. So this is just a little bit of history, so you can see from the past 5 years, and then what is proposed. We've done, again, GAD and Hometown Christmas are pretty self-sufficient. We do use the excess revenue at Greater Andover Days to offset concerts and other events from that, so we're going to keep going with that. But the big difference in the concert spending for the amphitheater is that we built an amphitheater last year. We do 3-4 concerts now. We don't do just one. So that's the big increase. But overall, we've done a really good job of staying in the black and not being in the hole. So this is just an overview of the data in graph form, but we are projecting to have a little bit more excess this year, which is the goal, to continue to grow as we grow. So expecting about a $2,000 surplus at the end of next year, assuming all of this year goes well. And then again, Greater Andover Days covers a lot of the other expenses in the festival fund. And Hometown Christmas pretty much breaks even every year, so we do a really good job with that at the end of the year, and we're continuing to grow that event as well. Just some questions that you guys had. Obviously, department changes. We built an amphitheater last year. We're doing a lot more events rather than just the one, bringing in the stage. We're also doing things like movies in the park, and trying to bring in a lot of other free events and outside rentals as well. To hit our budget goals and shrink them, we rely very, very heavily on our community volunteers. We are, for Beta Beta and CERT, we do pay them a small stipend for their organization, but it's much less than what we would be paying our employees to work for that day. And so that helps us keep our labor costs low. And then, of course, the chamber helps us a lot, both in marketing and providing volunteers. This year, we're doing a lot of in-house printing with our new fancy machines in the Public Works Department. So that's cut down our expenses a lot on signage and banners. And then, of course, we have a continued focus on increasing our ticket sales and our sponsorships. We did hit our sponsorship goal this year, and I'm continuing to still work at getting some more, but we did hit that goal this year, so that's pretty awesome. We have one full-time employee in this department, hello. But that's paid not from this budget specifically, other than the Greater Andover Days. It comes from half of it from CVB, half of it from Parks, and then Greater Andover Day. Well, not half, but basically half. Type of equipment that we have, we bring in special event equipment for each concert, lighting, sound, video, lighting for the back for the parking so people can see and they don't get hit. And then Central Park's about 80 acres and the amphitheater is about 2.5 acres, and that's all maintained through the Parks Department budget. So we get a lot of support from the Parks Department in their budget and other public works departments, which we appreciate. So do you guys have any questions?
Mayor, one comment I'll make about the payment of the events coordinator is, while I think we have it in the budget as a transfer, that's the mechanism it works. It shows in the general fund budget as a transfer from CVB for approximately $30,000. I have told staff, not just on that expenditure, but on every expenditure we're taking back from departments to the amphitheater, be it out of the general fund, if we have some wastewater guys who work. I would like to look at the strength of each of those particular funds before I just start taking money from the amphitheater, which may have, or the CVB fund, which may be down to $50,000, and I have a general fund with a carryover of $2 million. This fund is going to always be about level. And I think we can look at our own individual funds, be it from whether we need to reimburse the park department, the police department, CVB for that one full-time department. Every year we need to analyze that instead of just saying blanketly we're going to take that money and put it over there. There's no reason to have one of your funds running so dry when you have the availability of other money in other funds. So I just want to advise the council of that. We will come back and tell you how we've treated it, but it is something we would like to keep in mind while we're looking at the amphitheater and the overall Convention and Visitors Bureau fund.
I see the amphitheater fund as being dry, as you say. It's never going to make a lot of money, but we're trying to get it self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. That's the goal, to have it pay for itself. And have it pay for itself is going to include some of the items, your salary, some other stuff. I will let you duke it out with your department heads, what monies you're going to take to shore up this account in the meantime. And I think that's wise. The projected net here, just within a couple $1,000s, but it's still fledgling little deal here. So
we have a banner year with ticket sales. All of this will be subject to relooking at too, right?
Well, it could go the other way.
But
too.
Listen, our success, the amphitheater's success, should be everybody's success, and the amphitheater's need for money should be the entire city's need for money. This was built with the idea of serving our citizens and being an attraction. And to treat it like it's an enterprise fund of some type of stuff, at least it was never, ever my goal. We have figured out a way to segregate the debt service, as I talked before, with the fireworks tent rental, cell tower rental, and liquor tax. Right. And we've got that money paid for. But when it comes to making this work, every department in the city and every fund in the city should be working towards a goal of making this financially solvable, workable and solvent.
Separating the capital outlay from the operational expenses has obviously helped. There's no way this would turn out in the black if you didn't do that. And I agree with that. It's like a new business. I'll say it again. We're doing good. It's been a struggle, and we definitely need to increase ticket sales, but the better the attraction, the more tickets you're going to sell, but the better the attraction, the more expensive it is. So there's a two-edged sword here, but I think it's going well. I would like to continue to reduce the transfers from the Convention and Visitors Bureau budget as best possible, but that committee and group has made a commitment to support this, and I think it brings more visitors than anything else they could even possibly think about doing. But we'll get there. Yeah. Just patience.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Lastly, we have admin.
And now I'm going to have to, there we go. Okay. So I'll try to, I know this is the last budget and everybody's anxious to get through this. There's a list of what personnel, contractual, and commodities look like in administration. I just want to make a huge point here, and that is that we took the sales tax monies for the street shop, the restroom, and the ladder truck, and we would transfer that in to admin and then transfer it into bond and interest to make the payment. So that make our administration fund look like it went up a lot, and now it's going to make it look like it goes down as we make that last payment in the year coming. So you can see the spike there that includes the transfers coming from the sales tax through admin into bond and interest, and then you see the drop there. So we haven't done anything. We didn't do anything incredibly to spend more money than we were taking in, and now we're not doing anything incredibly. It's just a matter of the sales tax sunsetting, that money having been accumulated, and we were able to transfer it for the payments. Again, I reiterate, that's my top point of where the budget increase came from. We also have an increase in personnel wages. We hired a benefits and communications specialist a couple years ago, and I say stormwater tech and planning analyst. Really, that was the assistant public works director's money getting shifted over. The stormwater tech is paid mainly from the stormwater fund, but at any rate, at the end of the day, the administration budget went up personnel-wise. Also, we had, started the contract with Tyler Technology for our new financial software. That's in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $45,000 a year. And then we've been involved in a lot of different legal stuff here recently that I think has reaped great things for the city. But when we're getting sued on the Redbud Trail, we had a zoning case that was pretty expensive for us recently, and the TIF district has taken a lot of legal work and time. So we've had various increases in legal expenditures too. But I think it's been of great value to us and is going to lead to great things. So you can see we're proposing increase in personnel. That's primarily due to I think what's going to be a proposed 3% wage increase, but also we are looking at that one position. It's not heavily coming out of the administration budget, but what we would like to do is take that part-time clerk's position and make that into a full-time position. We'll still work part-time for the court clerk, but that position could take some payments and do some other things, and we think that would probably be more, compatible between, the person right now is doing some custodial work for the park department. I will say this will probably result in taking a 20-hour position in the park department to a full-time position halfway through next year, and then in the 2021 budget, we'll up for a full-time position for the park department. So there'll be some work in solving that budget-wise, but I think, we have 4 full-time places down in the city hall, and I think we have the need for that person to function in that manner. Get a little pretty much inflationary type increases and contractual and commodities. Capital this year, we paid for the time clock system. We have $10,000 in there, I believe, to help with our streetscaping, our walkable cities, is that the name of that program, Les? Sorry, I didn't have the acronym exactly right. Planning walkable places. And then we are budgeting in a transfer. Again, you'll recall that when we increased Westar electric franchise fee, we planned on transferring money to pay for the burial of the power lines. I will say our bond and interest fund has continued to be in magnificent shape because of refundings, great collections that Donna does on special assessments, and we haven't had to transfer the full amount. But I don't want to forget about that. We need to continue to look at that and remember that we should be transferring money if we get to a point where we're below $1 million or something in the bond and interest fund. I just want everybody to remember that we pledged to take some of that money and put it in the bond and interest fund, but right now we've been able to use the financial benefit of those refundings and the collections and specials to our advantage. I'm switching to the employee benefits budget. This is also a property tax fund that's separate from the general fund. You can look at our expenses over the last 4 years, and obviously you see growth in every one of those particular issues. But particularly retirement and health care has gone up over the years. Retirement, we're locked in on. That's Social Security, Medicare, and KP&F. We also have given 6% to each of our employees who aren't emergency personnel for their retirement, but there's really not much ability to cut that fund or control those expenses. Last year we had a 10% increase from KP&F. This year it went down 0.2%, which is certainly better than a 10% increase. So we're fortunate that this year. The other thing I'll mention is because our health insurance came in flat, we realized the benefit the year after. So last year Donna budgeted a 10% increase. Since it didn't go up, that means we can budget a 10% increase and not see an increase in the following year. So the employee benefits budget is going to be pretty flat this year overall. Actually forecasting a slight decrease. Don't expect it to see that every year because health insurance goes up pretty much every year, but we get fortunate from time to time and see it flat just based on our usage. But retirement will continue to go up as wages go up, and I just don't believe that the KPERS or KP&F system isn't going to continue to see increases. That's the only way they can make that pension fund solvent the way they need to. We got a reprieve this year, but I would continue to look for increases in those in the future. That's it. The only thing I want to mention, and we will lay this out a little bit on the screen and try to explain it more thoroughly next time, but our increase in the valuation is looking to be about $10 million. And that obviously most cities would consider that pretty substantial. We certainly do too. But we have a lot of things we're looking at doing next year. I know the question always is, how does that affect our ability to totally take advantage of that due to the state tax lid law? I'll explain this in more detail at the next meeting, but remember, new growth, which is about $3.2 million this year, is exempt from that calculation. They say if new stuff is coming on the tax rolls, that shouldn't be counted against you, which seems we have to provide services to those people that are brand new, and that makes sense. Also, you get this year a 1.5% cost of living increase or a CIP increase, which that's about $2.2 million factored into that. So now you're up above $5 million that's exempt. The other big number we have in there is we have $1.7 million of neighborhood revitalization coming back on the tax rolls from the program you did that was 100% citywide 5-6 years ago. So finally we've seen the windfall from that, and that doesn't count against you. Vornado had a tax exemption that came off this last year that was about $500,000. So we're into it already, and we're close to $8 million that is exempt. I will give them some credit for having some wisdom. I think all those things are very well deserved not to count against you. And then we have a few other exemptions related to emergency services and the Public Building Commission and some debt. So I don't think in terms of whether we're looking at a flat mill levy or even a mill increase, we're going to be in jeopardy of having to go to a vote on any of this. It's just, again, the council's going to have to look at that question and what we might propose a mill levy increase. Specifically, we have a goal in our park master planning to add parkland, whether that's something south of Kellogg or whether that's something next to Central Park. We also have a small expenditure we're going to make up on 13th Street Park, we believe, for that land. So that's a major priority, but it's going to have some costs with it. But we will get more into that at the July 9th discussion. Remember, at the next budget discussion, we set the mill levy at its highest. We can go down at the actual hearing the next time, but we can't go up. So it's an important discussion at the next meeting. But, I believe if we're going to look at a major park purchase that we should put in a mill levy increase to reflect that. I don't think it'll pay for the entire debt service on that increase, but it can offset it some, and then we can go to our other park improvement funds and park impact funds and get some monies from there to pay for it. But that's a discussion I'd like to have at the next meeting. I'll stand for any questions also.
My question would be the July 9th meeting is then really the bottom line of when we're going to crunch out the numbers of what we would want the budget to be at?
That would be at the highest we'd want the budget to be at. You will still have the opportunity to come back the day of the budget hearing and to say, I know we published at 42 or 43 or whatever, but I'd rather be at 41 and a half or 41 or whatever. So that the 23rd, I believe, no, maybe the 30th, I'm sorry, because our last meeting is the 5th. We can have more of a discussion on that. So you get kind of two bites at the apple at it. If you're going to talk about raising it, you have to publish that you're raising it, or you have to publish whatever you want the mill levy to be.
Do we know at this point, we've seen very detailed, incredible presentations from every department. Have we seen things that we are saying, I don't know that we can afford this, or I don't know that, I guess what I'm saying is, what my situation is. Maybe I need to do some extra work.
She's looking for a compilation.
Right.
I'm looking to see, are we going to have to tell some of these, departments, nope, you don't get that. You don't get that. Do we think it's all
I know
going to work?
the CFO has looked over the numbers, and I don't think she wants to make any bold commitments yet. But just from what I've seen so far, due to this increase, we should be able to answer a lot of the needs that are being asked for by the departments this time. The question always is how much are we going to budget for a wage increase? Because that's really one of the only places you can go to make, right now I'm talking about 3%. We also have a decent-sized debt payment forecasted for if we're going to go buy particularly parkland in there, and that can maybe be looked at. But I haven't gone over all the revenue projections. There's still some fine-tuning to do. But
prior to the July 9 meeting, then our packet should show us what it is that you've.
But anytime you're looking at a $10 million increase, it gives you a lot more flexibility on some of these questions. That's it's a very
$2 million in valuation.
Right. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. Not new budget. That's right. that gives you significantly more flexibility on some of these issues. So again, you always have to look at it and decide what you think is reasonable and what we're going after. And if you're saying, I still think this is a priority that we haven't fit in, we can always talk about that. I mean, some of these things are you willing to be a little bit more or less conservative on your revenue projections to make room in the budget? I mean, Donna always tries to be extremely conservative on those.
Right.
And if we think something's worth going after and we're pretty confident that there's a possibility there, that's one place you can look at. Obviously, the property tax is another thing, but shifting money from somewhere where maybe you can hold off on something. I mean, those are the things you can go through if you really have a priority that you think needs to be funded. And just because we don't fund something in one year doesn't mean we won't fund it, and then the the
Well, I just
following
wondered
years.
if we had any projection in your kind of.
I'm feeling as good about this one as anyone I've done. And that again is mainly because what we've seen in the increase in valuation. Also, I will say that the building permit increase has, particularly this year, we've had a pretty good year, and we're probably going to get more revenue off of that. We're just not seeing any areas where I see revenue being cut too much. Thank goodness we're not dependent on the state anymore for anything, so you never have to worry about that much anymore. Maybe gasoline tax or something like that, but overall, I don't see any revenues declining substantially, and our valuation is increasing substantially.
Thank you.
We had a problem with item 11? Is that what you're saying here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, staff has some confusion that I thought I would correct for the record if everyone's in agreement. The Trans Systems contract is not a lump sum contract, and when we amended the motion to include an amount, it conflicts with the approval of the contract. The way that contract works is we engage them as professionals to do the full design of that street. They do data collection, survey, concept analysis. They contract out. It's like a turnkey proposal for the geotechnical work. They do all of that work. And in order to get them to agree to do that and finish it on time, we agree to pay them 149% of their actual direct labor cost plus a fixed fee of $47,559. Councilman Tabor was absolutely correct that our best estimate is that will be $450,219.86, and it's included in the budget from the sales tax fund. I just wanted to be clear and make sure that there wasn't an intent to cap the amount that would be spent on that contract by including the estimated amount in the motion, because if that was the intent.
There was no wording in my motion that would be not to exceed.
Your purpose was just simply to let the public know that here's a professional engagement and this is our best estimate of what it will cost.
Greg made the motion.
Oh, did he?
And then and CR seconded it, and then Greg amended his motion.
Because of what I said.
But I don't recall whether he said a not to exceed amount or not.
I don't know if he's used that word or not either.
To be clear, that was not what was intended, right? That we intended to sign the contract, that is.
I didn't make the motion.
I didn't say that. I didn't say not to exceed.
Okay.
Okay. With that clarification then, I mean, Donna obviously keeps track, and we get billed monthly and you approve those costs every month in your appropriation ordinance. So with that understanding, I think we're fine, and I appreciate your allowance for us to make sure we understood that correctly.
And one new thing we could do on this is come back and have a post audit of these bigger projects and show you what the expenses came back. If that's the will of the council, is we could come back and show you what the contract came in, what we projected, and then what things came in at, and this, it's some transparency there for the public. I feel like, we budgeted $2.4 million for this project last year. It's already been approved that we're going to expend the money from the sales tax fund. We may have to issue a little bit more debt for it, but we've had the discussion in the 2019 budget, and I understand everybody's intent here was just to make sure that we're transparent with the public on what we're having to spend on design services and that type of thing. But we can come back and show you later on what these projects came in. It's just something we haven't done, but we would be glad to do it if that's the will of
I'd like to
council.
make a statement that's probably foolish, but
That's
this-
never stopped you
This
before.
contract demonstrates that this, and a lot of the contracts that we've had are lump sum contracts. This doesn't happen to be one of those. And yet, you know, we kind of got caught up on the actual numbers that you were using. And I think that Greg's original motion was probably more correct to approve the contract, which our attorney has just read verbatim on some of the items that they do. But overall, your point's well taken. We need to let people know kind of what this is about without being bound by that dollar figure. But I can understand that at least there's two types of contracts that we've been looking at. This doesn't happen to be the lump sum contract.
Okay,
Well, let's see.
situation solved, right?
Yes, with that clarification and everyone's understanding, I think we're fine.
So we're perhaps going to have an executive session, if you'd be so kind as to make a motion.
Yes, on executive session, I would move to recess to an executive session for consultation with an attorney or attorneys, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under KSA 75-431AB2 for 15 minutes and to return 15 minutes after right now to include the mayor, city council, city administrator, the assistant city administrator, public works director, the city attorneys that are present here from the Triplet Wolf Garrettson Law Firm.
Second.
We have a motion by CR, a second by Greg to go into executive session. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, I need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to come out of executive session. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're back in regular session, and I believe we're down to member items. Caroline, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, just a couple things. A couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, I shared with you my experience about how wonderful it is living in Andover when you can leave a wallet in a grocery cart out in a large parking lot and actually get it back and not even realize you're missing it for over an hour. But anyway, I had another interesting experience, and for the life of me, I can't figure out who this is yet. I was going through Sonic and placing an order, and it was during happy hour when the drinks get really reduced, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I've never seen it like this. It was afternoon, right before 4 o'clock, and I bet you there were at least 8 cars all waiting in line to go through there. Anyway, I wait, and I put my order in, and I finally get up there, and I go to pay, and they say, no, yours has already been paid for by the person in front of you. And I have no idea who it was. Didn't recognize the car. I don't know if that's just some new cute thing, but I have no idea. So I thought I would share that with you. And maybe only in Andover, but that was kind of a fun experience. And then maybe on the negative side, because we know that negative things can happen as well. Just today, I guess, in my own neighborhood, there was one of these situations where UPS delivered packages and somebody evidently following the UPS truck jumped out, grabbed packages, and took off with it. So maybe the chief knows something more about that. But I'm wondering if UPS can't be kind of involved in helping a little bit with this, if this is going to become a problem. For example, there are a lot of places where packages can be left where they're not so visible. Some of the people are just, right on front steps and things rather than tucking them up inside a doorway. So I don't know if you know anything about that or not, but I understood it happened.
I'm aware of the case, but you pretty well described it. There's not much more to it than that. An individual seen grabbing two packages. No, we haven't.
Has that been a new thing, or has that happened before in this area?
That's happened for years. Yeah. We don't have very much of it here. That's the first one I think we've had this year.
Okay. Anyway, that's it.
Troy.
Yeah, just one quick thing. The chamber continues to grow, and I see Becky here, and it's amazing. And I always get emails about new companies and such, and ribbon cuttings, and it's been awesome to watch. And then the other thing would be that they had a cornhole tournament, which I was unable to make due to a softball tournament. But my understanding is that the mayor and his partner won the whole thing, and that
he said he would.
He did say he would. So congratulations on that.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
You won something cool.
I did.
Good.
I had bragging rights.
That's cool.
I mean what I say, and I say what I mean.
All right, that's all.
CR.
No items.
Okay. I have one thing. When is construction of the KTA bridge on 159th scheduled to start? When are we anticipating that? And will that bridge close completely, or will they have one side open and then?
There are a whole series of events there. The bid letting is late in September, and we would expect the bridge construction to begin maybe sometime in November.
November of this year?
Yes. And that will close the bridge until the bridge is complete, probably 6 months.
So that road will be closed?
Yes.
For 6 months?
Yes.
Whew. Okay.
And there will be one-way traffic on 159th Street for the construction, because we've also got a sewer line going on at the same time. So they're going to be extended periods of time where there is just one-way traffic up to Teradyne Street on 159th.
Okay. I would hope somebody would, a month maybe or 30 days before we know construction is getting ready to start, would notify the Teradyne HOA both of them, actually.
I've been talking to
The Hereford
both.
House.
Been
Okay.
talking to
And
all
tear
of
down
them.
the golf club itself.
Yes.
They know it's coming.
Yes.
All right. 'Cause
And we'll
it's-
have public meetings once we get closer also.
Perfect. I just want to make sure everybody's aware, because 6 months could be a long time. What are you waving at? You all right? You doing okay back there? Okay. That's all I had. Does anybody have anything else?
Mr. Mayor, Independence Day festivities are coming up. I would ask folks to be super careful. Unusually this year, wheat is late, so there's still standing wheat in the wheat fields, so please be careful if you're shooting fireworks around any wheat. And if you need any safety tips, watch our social media, because we'll be putting them out over the next few days.
And no fireworks in the streets. Good luck with that one, Chief. Go down and check out that road closure down south on July 3rd. See what they're doing. Anything else?
If the road's closed.
Just remind everybody that we have our first Capitol Federal Amphitheater concert this Saturday, Red Dirt Roundup. Gates open at 3, music at 4. There's also a truck rally put on by a local radio station over at Andover Central Middle from 9 a.m. until 3.
Truck rally or a truck show?
I think they're calling it truck rally, but it's a show and they are giving out awards.
Those are two totally different things.
Okay, so they are not going to be going through dirt and revving their engines.
All
They're
right,
going to
shit,
show
man.
their vehicles.
I got some construction over there. I'm sure they could wheel through.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything else about. Oh, and there's a free concert July 6th, the Saturday after 4th of July. Free movie. Did I say concert? I meant movie. Sandlot will be showing. So
Nice.
come on out for free that weekend.
What's the
But
movie?
pay for your ticket
Sandlot.
this weekend.
Sandlot, okay.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
There is pickleball, a cross between tennis and badminton and ping pong. The City of Andover's Recreation Department has an active